Hi, it's Penny here, and today I wanted to share with you the books that I'm planning to read for Nonfiction November, as well as maybe tell you about some of my favorite nonfiction books, some of them which I own, and a few that I don't. So Nonfiction November is an event run by a book olive every year, I think for like 7 years or something, and the basic idea is just to read nonfiction. As long as you read one nonfiction book, then that's counted as winning, but it's really up to you how far you decide to take it. There are, just for fun, 4 one-word prompts that you can try to use to pick your nonfiction books, and I have managed to somewhat match up the books that I picked to those prompts. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch a few times, but that's half the fun of it. It's just a good excuse to read some nonfiction. I used to try and read at least one nonfiction a month, but recently I've been a bit stressed, and as well I haven't been getting to any. But also I've been a bit stressed and I want to try and do something about that. So a lot of these books are actually nonfiction books, self-improvement type ones, or ones that I think might help me address some of my problems. So let me get into telling you about those books. The first one-word prompt is the word collection. And for this, I'm going to go with Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson. Now, if I'm honest, this book doesn't have a great average rating on Goodreads and the reviews weren't great, but I just kind of liked the title. And I know back when I used to be an angry developer, I often felt like I was surrounded by idiots, but I don't really feel like that now. However, I'm working with some developers who definitely do think that they're surrounded by idiots. And so I kind of wanted to read this book just to see whether it could give me some insights into that way of thinking and how to help people out of that way of thinking. And the way that I've matched this up against the word collection is I believe that this author actually has a collection of books that all start with this phrase, surrounded by. I think there's Surrounded by Bad Bosses and some other ones. So I'm going to count that as a collection. Then next we have the prompt industry. So for this I'm going to read Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey. So this book is all about productivity and how you can get more done in less time by improving your focus. Definitely something I have been struggling with lately is my focus, and it's really annoying me. So I'm hoping that this will give me some good ideas about how I can improve my focus and perhaps somehow figure out how to get more done with my time, because I never seem to have enough time. But I think the problem is not actually having enough time, although maybe that's part of the problem, but also it's just that I'm not using my time well. So yeah, hopefully it can help me. The way that I am linking this to industry is all about being productive. You know, when you're industrious, it's when you're working really hard, getting lots done. So industry. Then the next prompt is style, and for this I'm going to read Order from Chaos by Jaclyn. So this book is all about people or adults with ADHD can help keep themselves organized in their everyday lives. It's supposed to be quite practical, and the reason why I've decided to pick this up is, one, I do know a few people with ADHD, so maybe I'll learn something along with that, but also every time I hear someone talk about ADHD, I just think to myself, but isn't that normal? And I've thought to myself so many times when they talk about the difficulties that they're having, isn't that normal? That I've started thinking maybe it isn't normal, but maybe it's normal for me because maybe I have ADHD. I don't know. Certainly in the past I would have said I was on top of things enough and organized enough and focused enough. That definitely not. But when I get stressed or when I'm unhappy, then I start thinking maybe. So I'm going to try and look at some of these practical tips and see whether they're things that could help me, regardless of whether I actually have ADHD or not. And also maybe I'll learn some things that I could share with other people that they might find helpful. And the way that I'm going to link this into Order from Chaos is I'm going to say ADHD is just a style of brain. I honestly, in some ways, I don't think it's helpful to say like that just because your brain works differently, that means it's not normal. I mean, I guess that's the definition of normal. But honestly, everyone's brain works differently. So we just have to find things that help us live our lives the way we want to, given our style of brain. That's how I'm fitting this to the prompt, and that's how I'm thinking about things at the moment. But I guess I will read the book and hopefully I will learn some more. It's the whole point of nonfiction, right? Then the last prompt is treatment. And for this, I'm going to be reading a book, which I'm going to read the title because it's long. It's Retrain Your Brain, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy in 7 Weeks, a workbook for managing depression and anxiety. So this book is in Audible's new catalog of free audiobooks. So Audible started doing this thing where if you have a subscription, you can listen to any of the audiobooks from this other catalog for free. And there's a few different non-fictions in there that I've picked out, and this is one of them. Definitely sometimes I feel depressed. Definitely sometimes my brain gets stuck on thoughts that I don't want it to be stuck on, and so I thought maybe I could use this to deal with it. Especially lately, I've found myself getting really angry about work in a way that I know is completely not helpful, but still I keep thinking those thoughts. So I'm going to see if I can use this one to train myself out of that way of thinking. And of course, this links to treatment because cognitive behavioral therapy is a kind of psychological treatment. So that's all the prompts, but I do have a couple of other ones that I want to read. Firstly, I've got, and I'm reading this again because it's long again, it's just called Unfuck Your Brain, but it's also using science to get over anxiety, depression, anger, freakouts, and triggers. Let's be honest, pretty much if you're human, your brain is somewhat fucked. So I think we could all do with trying to unfuck it a little bit. So I saw this one in the Audible catalog where it was free as well, and I thought, why not give it a read and see if it helps. And then lastly, I have Burnout, The Secret to Solving the Stress Cycle by Emily Nagoski. So this book is one that I actually saw the author Cassie Hart share, and she said it was really helpful for her to stop burning herself out. As I said, getting stressed at work, burning myself out. Also, there's a lot of pressure at my work at the moment, and so my teammates are also being burnt out, and I would like to learn some techniques that would help me as well as some techniques that would help them. I think I've worked out that if I read just an hour of these nonfiction books every day, then I should get through all of the ones that I've planned. So that seems like it would be pretty good. Also, I'd really like if you have any self-improvement books that you have read in the past that you found really helpful. I would love it if you could leave them down in the comments so that I could check them out. But let me now share with you a few non-fiction books that I've read in the past that I've really enjoyed. To be honest, not many self-improvement books. So let's hope that the ones I'm going to be picking up in November are going to be the ones that I actually like. Because I've read a few in the past, and some of them have been okay, but none of them have really made any kind of long-term impact on me. Oh, maybe that's not true. Maybe one of these ones does. So I've got here some of my favorite nonfiction books on my shelf. Can you hear that? It's really loud, isn't it? My camera just stopped and I don't know when it stopped filming. So I've been talking about Switch, which is a book by Chip and Dan Heath. It's all about change, kind of organizational change actually. Although I guess you could apply it in a lot of different situations. So it's called How to Change When Change is Hard. I found it just a really good book talking about some of the things that stop change from really happening and how you can use certain strategies to get momentum behind the changes you're trying to do. It's got lots of really great examples and I just really enjoy it. This is actually a kind of a crappy edition. I had a better edition. I lent it to someone. They really liked it so much that they never gave it back. Then another one, and this is probably the nonfiction that stuck with me the most actually. So this is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg. This is just a book all about how to have conversations with people in a way that isn't violent. And it's one that I honestly believe a lot of people should read. In fact, I think we should be taught a lot of these strategies when we are younger in school. I think that our world could be a better place if everyone knew how to do non-violent communication, how to communicate what it is that you need in a way that doesn't set people up to be antagonistic back to you, but also how to listen to what other people need. It's a great book. I do recommend it. The audiobook, the author narrates it himself and he is so calm the whole time. I do recommend the audiobook. And then while I was grabbing from this section, I thought I would also grab Mindset by Dr. Carol S. Dweck. This one is one where I feel like some people will think it's kind of obvious and they won't get much from it. However, if you're someone who thinks just that you are crap at stuff and there's nothing you can do about it, or you think other people are just crap at things and there's nothing they can do about it, then maybe you need to learn a little bit about a growth mindset. You maybe don't even need to read the whole book because it does go on and on quite a lot with lots of different examples, and the main kind of concepts and ideas are in the beginning of the book. So that's another good one. The only one that I have on my shelf other than that I really, really liked is this chunker. Oof! Now I've destroyed my shelf. It is Strategy, Process, Content, and Context by Bob DeWitt and Rob Meyer. So this is actually a book that I got for one of my university papers, and it's just a collection of all these different papers about management type stuff. It was a management paper, but basically each chapter is based around a different paradox. So it's like looking at how you choose between different approaches to strategy. So I always remember there's a chapter in here about change, and it looks at whether revolutionary or incremental change is the best, and there'll be papers on either side of the argument. And in the university course that I had, we actually had to go in class and debate which way was better, and you got points for whether you said anything clever in the class, which at the time was terrifying because I hated public speaking, but I also think that it was really good for stretching me out of my comfort zone, and like I learnt the material way better than I did anything else at university. And I think a lot of the ideas that I got from this book still stick with me. So even though it's a chunker, it's a great book. Probably not something you would just try to sit down and read in a month, but the individual papers could be interesting to go through. A lot of really classic papers on strategy in here. Wow, maybe I'm a management geek for bringing that one up. But while I'm being like a software development management geek, a few other ones that are good that if you're in that field you've probably heard about, but I'll talk about them anyway. The Lean Startup by Erikson is really good in terms of like really quickly figuring out what you want to be doing if you're doing like a startup type business, or even if you're working in a more innovative team within a business. Another couple that actually might make good nonfiction November options is The Phoenix Project and also The Goal. So both of these stories are written kind of as like a fiction novel, except that they're also teaching you these concepts about flow and how to keep a complex system moving and delivering. So we're following in both of these books. I think The Phoenix Project is kind of just like a modern day adaptation of The Goal. The Goal, the main character is working in this factory, but they're really struggling. They're probably going to all lose their jobs, and he's trying to figure out a way to solve their company's problems, their manufacturing problems, at the same time as trying to solve his marriage problems. So it's like a real true experience of what it's like being that kind of manager and solving those kind of problems, and seeing how he sees some of the same concepts he's learning in fixing his manufacturing plant in his everyday life. And the Phoenix Project is kind of the same, except instead of it being a manufacturing company, it's a software development team. So they're kind of fun nonfictions, fiction nonfictions. Then another one that I would recommend would be Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. I don't know how to say his surname, but this one, I feel like I didn't necessarily love the book as a whole. However, it talks a lot about how people make decisions and about how much we don't understand our own biases. And the thing I really remember from this book is how it talks about how we can design systems to help people to make the right decision. And I think for that concept, it's definitely worth reading. Then I just have a couple more. I would recommend Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. This is quite big a little while ago, but I haven't heard about it recently. Basically, it's talking about what life is like when you get really old. This guy has been a doctor, helping old people to make decisions about their lives and like what they're willing to compromise to keep living and what they're not willing to compromise, and how to like get the most out of the kind of the end of your life, which is kind of a depressing concept to think about, but I think it is also important to think about what's actually important to you, and to understand for the people you know who are getting older, what kind of questions you should be asking to make sure that you know what's really important to them and that they're getting what they want out of the end of their life. Then the last book that I will recommend is So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluwa, I think. So I read a lot of books, I think the year before last, around the topic of race and racism, and this is the one that I found the most helpful for me. I do have a suspicion that it's because the author is actually about the same age as me, and I think maybe that just means her way of thinking around this is something that aligns with my own, but I did still learn some things from it. And while I don't think it should be the only book you read on this topic, I do think it's a good one and worth picking up. So that's a bunch of nonfiction recommendations, as well as the books that I'm going to read for Nonfiction November. Let me know if you're going to be reading some nonfiction books in November, and which ones are the ones that are exciting you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.